Hey guys, Dan here, and welcome again to that paintball channel. For this episode, we'll be continuing our series on paintball accuracy and continuing our mini-series on marker accuracy. Now, last time we poked a little good-natured humor at some of the hype, the mythology surrounding certain marker platforms as being magically more accurate than others, when in fact the objective reality is that every single marker that's ever been made is exactly as accurate as every other marker. Stick them all on a bench, put them all on a vise, shoot the same paint through them, same velocity, same conditions, everything. They're all the same accuracy. However, we noted, people do tend to think of certain ones as being different, certain ones more accurate than others. So, the question is, why is that? So for this episode, I want to take a look at some of the really deep reasons why people do tend to view certain markers as being somehow fundamentally different from other markers in terms of their, objective accuracy. And of course, this is very different from our next episode, where we will look at some reasons why certain markers may actually work better for certain players, depending on body style and size and things like that, ergonomics and whatnot. But that's a very different question from these sort of superstitious beliefs that, this marker or that marker is actually more accurate than something else, even though they're not. So, the first consideration, I think, that leads people to view one or another marker as more or less accurate may have to do with kind of what I would call fluke experiences or freak experiences. You might have a good or bad experience with a particular marker on a particular day, given particular circumstances, and on the basis of that one experience, have that sort of psychological phenomenon where you then interpret new experiences in light of that first experience. So I'll give you an example of this. First day that I took out the GOG enemy, had been playing with another marker, was, having a great day. I get the thing out and I start shooting, and it was horrible. Paint was flying all over the place, and I'm thinking, okay, the rational higher brain is saying to me, okay, you need to step back and just think about this. No marker is actually more or less, accurate than another. And, there's got to be some kind of an explanation for this. Meanwhile, the sort of child, smooth animal brain is like, ah, ah. Oh my, whatever seems to be the matter, my boy? My new marker! It's not as accurate! It's not as accurate as the other one! I was just shooting this one! And this one, I just got this one is new! And it's not as accurate! The paint's going all over the place! It's terrible! Oh dear. Well, we know, of course, that all markers are objectively just as accurate or inaccurate as one another, don't we? No, it's not true! No, this one's obviously different! I was just shooting the other one. This one is no good! Okay, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that all markers are actually just as accurate or inaccurate as one another, and we'll proceed through this in a logical fashion. Does that sound okay? Okay. Now, for starters, have you examined the marker to make sure that there's no dirt or gunk or anything like that in it? Perhaps you might examine the breech. Is the breech clean? No, it's clean. And now, let's examine the barrel. Is it dirty? Is it clean? Yep, the barrel's clean. Oh dear, that's entirely unsafe. Let's not do that again, shall we? Okay. Now, let's find out a little bit more about the problem. This is interesting. Have you determined that you're using good quality paint? Good paint? Yep, it's good paint. Yep. Okay, so you're telling me that you've made sure that the marker is clean and you've checked the quality of paint. Have you just recently cracked into a new bag of paint? New paint? Yeah, actually, I just did. I opened up a new bag. Now, here's an idea. Why don't you try using the same paint in the previous marker? Okay. Okay, I guess that makes sense. So, what have we learned? The accuracy was awful. It was just as bad it was just as bad in this one as it was in the other one. Ah, there, you see, we've arrived at a solution in a logical, reasonable fashion, following the evidence where it leads. Now, what is the conclusion to this problem? This marker isn't accurate anymore! I need to upgrade! Oh dear, oh dear. Not too bright, are we, lad? So got some good paint, put it in the enemy, and it shot great. So, but I think a lot of times people will have an experience like that. Maybe somebody hands you a marker and they haven't told you, oh yeah, I broke some paint in here, and then you shoot it and you think, this is horrible. And those kinds of first negative, or maybe somebody hands you a marker that's got perfect paint, everything's clean, and you shoot it and you're like, woo! So, a first-time experience can really alter how a person views or thinks about a marker. So that's one consideration. And there are about 4 or so that we'll look at. Another one has to do with optical illusions. Now this is not so much accuracy, but it does have to do with the perception of distance. As I said last episode, Smart Parts back in the day, had this goofy campaign. They were advocating for low pressure, pretending that it shoots further and flatter and it's more accurate and all this junk. And it's completely demonstrably false. But, people sort of had this perception. And to use, again, the GOG enemy as an example of this, people will shoot this marker and they will just say so often, oh man, it just feels like this thing shoots far. And I experienced it too. I'm shooting this, I'm thinking, whoa, this is weird. It just, and it quickly occurred to me, okay, the thing is somehow indexing in such a way that the shots are going high. And you probably can't see this on camera so much, but the way that the body is cut gives this, it almost has this kind of like turned up nose effect. And as you're sighting down a marker, you tend to use the body as a primary frame of reference for indexing. And a lot of these cuts tend to go down. And what that means is that your barrel is actually elevated some relative to where you're pointing. And so it feels as though it's shooting further. And this is something that you can see especially in the GMEC. You can see these cuts. They're tracking downward. And again, if you're sort of indexing in the heat of the moment, you're not really thinking about it too much, but that does play a role so that the barrel is actually up relative to where you're aiming. And you had a lot of these kinds of things that came up with, respect to like the E-Tech and especially the LV1, this goofy notion of a drop shot. And people would talk about this with a straight face. Completely false. There's no drop shot to the LV1 or to any other kind of marker. What they're experiencing is that same phenomenon, just the other way. The shape of the body, it's a stacked tube. And, the way that it orients naturally as you point it gives a perception. It is purely an optical illusion. But people have this idea that, oh yeah, it's a drop shot. There's no drop shot. Something about the Automag that I always liked is the fact that it's just this straight tube. It's just burp, and the barrel, everything. And yeah, it's plain Jane. It doesn't look fancy. But that really, for me, I like to know exactly how the marker is being indexed when I point it so that I know, okay, I need to elevate. This single boring plain Jane tube helps me to do that. And I really have good results from this. Well, so we've got the freak occurrences with good or bad, paint and equipment and things like that. You have optical illusions. Another factor that goes into this, I think, is simply your experience of another player with a high skill level. And this is something I see all the time. Younger players, people see a really skilled player out there on the field, and they'll have, maybe a nice marker or some marker that's different, and people say, oh my goodness, your marker's so accurate. Oh my goodness, that thing shoots lasers. What is that? I want to know what that is. And, sometimes the player will say, hey, look, it's just, I've been playing a long time. I've got more skill base, just because I've been doing it for a long time. It's not the marker, it's just, I've got more practice. And sometimes, though, players will themselves buy into the hype But I think this is a large part of the market for selling markers that professionals use. People see a professional who, by the way, they could use blowguns. It doesn't matter. They're professionals. They practice, practice, practice. They're highly skilled. They're highly trained, and they can take the junkiest marker and make it seem to do magic tricks just because they're skilled. So that too, I think, is an important consideration. Is that so many times people will see a really skilled player, somebody with a pump. I think a lot of the mystique of pumps is that usually the people who play with them, they have to get good because they're using a pump. They're at, a supreme firepower disadvantage, and so they have to train themselves to become very skilled with snap shooting especially, and that gives the aura of accuracy. And so the confusion is made between the skill of the player and the capacity of the marker, and that's another really important consideration. Another consideration has to do with money or perceived value. How many times have you been at the field or at the local pro shop and you hear the following conversation? Well, hey guys, this tipman doesn't really seem all that accurate. Is that normal? Oh yeah, man. That's like a tippy, man. Everybody knows you can't hit anything with a tippy. Like a buddy of mine, he's like a professional. He plays D5, and he was like using a tippy in one game. Like, and he ran up on a guy, and he tried to bucket the guy, and the guy turned and shot him. But there's no way he would have shot him if he had been using anything other than that tippy. So like everybody knows the tippies are like awful. You can't hit anything with them, man. Lame. Now what you really need is this puppy. Yeah, that's right. Oh wow. That's a nice marker. What is that? This is a Resurrection Autococker. Oh yeah. Oh man, this thing is awesome. Whoa. How much does something like that cost? This thing costs like $600, man. But you get what you pay for. So you're saying if I get one of those, it'll be a lot better? Oh yeah, man. Totally. Like if you had one of these, you can like hit anything, man. You can it's like close bolt accuracy, man. Oh yeah. You can hit like any like I regularly shoot people at like 300-400 yards, man. Yeah, close bolt accuracy, baby. Oh yeah. Okay, thanks. I don't know, man. I mean, this thing is definitely nicer. Certainly it's good to look at, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's any more accurate. I mean, if I'm really thinking about it, it just seems like it's about the same. Oh yeah, man, that's like a bummer, bro. Like I was like right where you were at, man, and I realized too that my accuracy wasn't as good as it could be. And I saw this guy who was like playing the newest marker that was like $1,500, and I like checked that out, man, and I could just tell totally it was way more accurate. And he let me shoot it once, and I totally could see it was totally worth it. So I actually went out and bought that. So my recommendation for you would be like to go out and buy the same marker, man, because like pretty much I've determined that you can't have accuracy for anything less than like $1,200-1,300, man. Seriously, 1,000 minimum. Otherwise, you're just not competitive, dude. Seriously. Oh wow, that's really expensive. Well, okay, I guess you gotta pay to play. Thanks. Okay, so what's taking place is a logical fallacy. It has many variations, goes by many names, but the long and the short of it is I imagine that there is a specific kind of value that is directly proportional to the money that I put into something. So you want a more accurate marker? You got to put more money into it. Or if I have already sunk a lot of money into something, then I have to rationalize that in my mind that I did in fact get what I paid for. Nobody wants to imagine that they've been ripped off or that they, got sold a bill of goods or something like that. So if I've sunk, massive amounts of money into a marker or something, I expect that the performance level is going to match that outlay of cost. And certainly with respect to performance in paintball, we put a high premium on accuracy. So I have to tell myself that I got what I paid for when I'm shooting this thing. And, it's interesting, a viewer last week had mentioned that he had experienced this. He upgraded from a Spider to a Smart Parts Impulse and noticed it's not any more accurate. Well, of course it's not any more accurate. That's part of the big business of paintball. Not so much now that I think people are becoming more educated, but certainly back in the day. I mean, it wasn't just upgrading because you wanted to make your marker run a little bit more smoothly or be a little more efficient or more comfortable or something. But the idea of accuracy, oh, you got to get this and this and this to make it more accurate. And that was a huge business. And, people have to believe either, oh, well, I got what I paid for, or maybe this wasn't quite the upgrade I needed. I needed to spend just a little bit more money. So good on that viewer for recognizing that it wasn't actually more accurate. So many people, I think, would have just in their own minds justified that, oh yeah, it actually is more accurate, and maybe I was just off that day, or something, any number of excuses. But that is definitely a consideration when it comes to thinking about accuracy. Well, hopefully that was useful, informative, perhaps entertaining. For our next episode, we will be getting away from hype and myth and mistakes in reasoning and really start to focus on some actual reasons why, from an objective point of view, certain markers do actually tend to perform better for certain players than others. So, very much looking forward to it. As always, come on back, bring a friend.